Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Mayor Patrick Hall. It is Tuesday evening, 6 p.m, 12th of August 2025. I welcome you to the City of Canning's agenda briefing for this evening. I declare the meeting open and acknowledge the Whadjuk people, the traditional custodians of the land, and of course we pay our respects to elders both past and present. In accordance with the City of Canning's policy CM 105, agenda briefings are conducted to provide elected members with a forum to ask questions of the City's administration to enable informed decision-making by Council at the following week's ordinary Council meeting. And agenda briefings are not decision-making forums. Questions may be asked and answered, but no debate or discussion is permitted. Questions must specifically relate to an item on tonight's agenda. Elected members and employees must disclose any financial, proximity or partiality interest that they have in an item on the agenda and declare the interest at the commencement of the briefing or, at the latest, when the item is about to be discussed. And financial, proximity and impartiality interests are to be disclosed in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government Act as they apply to council meetings. Elected members disclosing a financial or proximity interest must not participate in that part of a briefing relating to their interest and must leave the meeting for the duration of the item. And agenda briefings are open to the public. The briefing is being live streamed to the public via the City's YouTube channel. And lastly, may I ask that all present turn off mobile phones for the duration of this meeting, please. Councillor Tuchek, I might just throw to you. People will be wondering why all of us here have a common yellow theme, and I can see people are wondering where they can get a tie like mine. Probably not. Councillor Tuchek, why are we all wearing yellow tonight?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We're wearing yellow tonight for the Starlight Foundation, which has been operating for about 35 years now, helping children with illnesses, so making their journey in hospital a little bit brighter and happier. So thank you very much, everyone.
Fantastic. Thank you, Councillor Tuchek, for continuing the initiative, and thank you for those who have also made a small donation, and to staff and also councillors who have participated this evening. Thank you. At item 2, attendance, item 2.1, apologies. Councillor Hearn and Councillor Singh are both apologies for this evening. Approved leave of absence at item 2.2, there are none. Disclosures of interest, CEO Michael Willetton. Can I ask whether we have received any disclosures this evening?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In relation to item 3.1, I have received, and I will receive a declaration from the CEO, Mr Michael Willetton, in relation to item OC 007 of 25. It is the CEO Performance and Salary Review Committee terms of reference. Obviously, that committee meets to consider performance and salary of the CEO. In relation to item 3.2, declarations of impartiality, and I would also state that I've had nothing to do with the preparation of that item for consideration by Council. In relation to item 3.2, declarations of impartiality, I have received two. The first from Councillor Shen Sekon in relation to item CO 006 of 25. It is in relation to Willetton Sports lighting upgrade. The nature of Councillor Sekon's interest is she has a child that plays for Canning City Soccer Club under 12s. Hope they're going well. The second declaration of impartiality I've received from Deputy Mayor Mark Bain in relation to item IE 016 of 25. It is RFT 22 of 2025, Nicholson Metcalfe intersection upgrade. The nature of Deputy Mayor Bain's interest is I live around the corner from the proposed intersection upgrade.
Terrific. Thank you very much for those, CEO. I'll move to item 4, question time for the public. Responses to previous questions taken on notice will, of course, be noted in the ordinary council meeting agenda for next week. Before I open question time for the public, are there any questions proposed? The time set aside for public questions is 15 minutes, which may be extended if necessary. A question must relate to an item listed on the agenda paper. For recording purposes, please state your name and suburb, then proceed to ask your questions. I open question time now at 6:05. If anyone wishes to ask a question, please proceed down to the microphone. Staff will turn the microphone on, and your question must relate to an item listed on tonight's agenda.
Okay, my name's Collette Bishop and I live in Renault Street in East Cannington. The question is in regards to the trolleys, which seems to be a very hot topic, and it's relating to how in practice they're going to enforce this
I
trolley.
just have to stop you there.
Yeah?
We're not dealing with a matter of shopping trolleys tonight, as far as I know.
I thought it was on the agenda.
I haven't. Is it in there?
Yeah.
Just stand by, Ms. Bishop, just for a moment. There you go, I'm on. Ms. Bishop, look, I apologise. We've got standing orders that relate to items. The matter that's up tonight is relevant only to a penalty relation to trees, not about shopping trolleys. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to rule that it's not a relevant item for discussion tonight. That's the standing orders. If we breach the standing orders, it's actually a breach of the local law, and so I can't. What I have asked is the director here, Gary, will come over and see you personally to discuss your issue and take it offline and provide you with an answer around the item you wanted to discuss more liberally around shopping trolleys. But that's not specifically an item on tonight's agenda. And the preamble I read, as you would have listened to earlier, a question tonight must relate specifically to an item listed on the agenda. And so whilst I see your point, we're not discussing shopping trolleys tonight.
Okay, so nothing to do with public city property or anything like that? Is that what was on the agenda, my understanding? No?
No, it's not.
Okay, fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, it's not. The effect of the
Okay,
proposed
okay,
City of
fine.
Canning proposed law, Property and Public Places Amendment, is to amend the City of Canning Local Government Property and Public Places Local Law to amend the modified penalty for the offence of damaging, destroying or removing a tree or street tree. That's
Well,
it.
that was one of them as well, something else I
That's
was
the
going to
recommendation to
mention. Yeah.
council, and that's what the report's about.
Okay.
That's my ruling, Ms Bishop, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But Director Gary Fisher will come down and see you now, and I'm sure he'll be able to
So
provide
nothing
you.
to, so I can't mention the trees either as to how
You
that's
can ask
going
a question in relation to trees, absolutely you
Okay,
can.
that's what was another question of mine, was in practice, how that's going to work and how the officers are going to enforce that. So there's been incidents where I've had to talk to officers of the city where people are parked right against a tree, pushing it over. And I wanted to know in practice how that's going to work, you know, as to does that constitute damage to a tree?
So under
yeah.
under the Police Act, and we're not talking about the Police Act, but under the Police Act, it has to be willful damage. It has to be intentional, and obviously what is construed to be accidental is not included in that. But I'll certainly throw to Mr. Fisher.
Mr. Yildiz.
Oh, Mr. Yildiz will answer your question in relation to whether or not that will be included.
And the other part of that question was, is there an acceptable distance that people can park near a tree that in our bylaws at all?
No, I would say no, but Mr. Yildiz?
Yep.
Thank you, and through the Mayor, and thank you for your question. In relation to prosecuting for an offence or issuing an infringement, the same rules of evidence would apply, and the Mayor is absolutely correct in regards to accidental versus malicious or willful. The process would obviously require gathering of evidence, being able to prove the offence, and then determining whether or not it's going to be infringement or a prosecution on that basis. So not dissimilar to issuing a parking infringement or prosecuting someone for an offence under the local law.
So you would have to have constant evidence of somebody constantly doing it. So, or is that down to the officer actually, you know, to investigate?
No, in relation to an offence, it is a one-off, but if it is a constant action that's happening that's damaging the trees...
So if you
one-
can log 5
Bishop,
days a
I
week
have
that
to
someone's
ask you just
doing
ask
it.
a question, so it's not a discussion.
Okay, I just
So
wanted,
ask
I want a
yep.
clarification on that, just otherwise, yeah.
Yes, so in relation to each discrete offence would be a separate offence.
Yep.
If it is a continuing issue, each time there's an occurrence of that particular damage would be considered a separate offence.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Thank
I'll
you.
leave it at that.
Did you still wish to speak to Mr.?
Yes, I do. I do. Would
Okay,
that-
Mr.
yeah.
Fisher will come down and have a quick chat to you. Thank you for coming along. Are there any further questions from the public gallery? None. Thank you, everyone. I'll close public question time now. The time is 10 minutes past 6 p.m. We'll move on to item 5. A deputation has been approved for Nick Hidding from Hidding Urban Planning regarding item PD 006 of 25, the initiation of scheme amendment number 19 to local planning scheme number 42. Mr. Hidding, are you here? Would you like to step forward, please? Introduce yourself to council. You have up to 10 minutes in which to make your deputation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, councillors and executive officers. My name's Nick Hidding, Hidding Urban Planning. My office is in Subiaco. We act for Gilpin Park Proprietary Limited, which is a John Hughes Group company, owner of 145 Welshpool Road in Welshpool. We are seeking the council's support for the initiation of scheme amendment for the purposes of an additional use for motor vehicle sales.
Mr. Hidding, I'll just hold you up just for one moment. Can I get a member of staff to close that door? I'm just worried that conversation is going to be picked up on... All done, I think. Sorry to interrupt you. Time starts again. Thanks, Mr. Hidding.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I say, we seek the council's support for the initiation of our scheme amendment for the purposes of additional use for motor vehicle sales. The subject property in question has been utilised extensively for motor vehicle sales since the 1960s. However, as a result of the city's new planning scheme being gazetted in 2020, the motor vehicle sales use became an X use and not permitted use in the general industry zone. And we are aware that this change caused a range of non-conforming use issues for motor vehicle sales businesses across the City of Canning. So we seek the city's support for an additional use for this singular additional land use to reflect the historical use of the site and to allow the site to be utilised for such purpose as it was intended when our client, the John Hughes Group, purchased the site in early 2020. The site was purchased when the city's previous scheme was in effect and where the motor vehicle sales land use was a permissible land use in the general industry zone. The new scheme changed the permissibility of the vehicle sales use in industrial areas, and that caused a range of non-conforming issues to arise. It's open for landowners to secure better rights under additional use provisions, as has been done for the motor vehicle industry in the City of Stirling, in Osborne Park, as well as in the town of Victoria Park. Proposing an additional use scheme amendment is a legitimate proposal. Even though the City's officers recommend that the scheme amendment does not proceed, it's our respectful request that Council initiate the amendment at least and allow the subsequent stages of the process to occur. The subsequent processes include public consultation, WAPC consideration and of course ministerial decision. Council will also have another opportunity later down the track to vote on whether the amendment should be granted final approval. So what we're seeking today and for decisions next week is that rather than the stopping of the amendment now, we'd ask that the amendment be at least initiated to track through the scheme amendment process of public consultation and Planning Commission consideration. And we believe that's an appropriate and orderly process to go through, and we'd seek for the Council to set aside the officer's recommendation, which is in front of you tonight. We've reviewed the officer's recommendations, and the reasons in front of you, there are 4 reasons that the City believes that the scheme amendment should not proceed, and I've set them out in our submission, our written submission, which I hope you've had a chance to review. One of the reasons is that the scheme amendment does not align with the City's local planning strategy, as the site is identified as industrial land. An additional use rezoning for a scheme amendment does not preclude the site from being used for general industry purposes, as the base zoning of general industry will not change. This scheme amendment will simply enable another singular land use, i.e. an additional use, from being able to be considered, leaving the base zone of general industry intact. And therefore the scheme amendment does not compromise the intent of the City's local planning strategy. In any event, any development application for the vehicle sales use still will require a development application to be assessed by the City. reason 2 of the officer's recommendation says that the motor vehicle sales use is an X use in the general industry zone. We know that, that's why we're providing an additional use. And the reason goes on to say that there was a scheme review which identified that the protection of industrial land should be a high priority. Again, the protection of industrial land, as per the point above, the site can be continued to be used for general industrial purposes. So this additional use does not compromise that ability. In terms of the non-conforming use rights, whether they are there or not, whether they exist or not, it's a legitimate proposal to seek an additional use for a specific land use. And then fourthly, there's a reason that the scheme amendment could set an undesirable precedent. It's considered that a scheme amendment of this nature will not set a precedent, as every scheme amendment needs to be considered on its merits and will have different variables such as location, historical use, and the proposed use. The normal criteria for determining whether precedent is appropriate to use as a reason for refusal, in our view, is not met, in that we do not believe that there is more than a mere chance or possibility that there may be undistinguishable applications. What this means is that any other proposal is more than likely to be distinguishable from this one, and that initiation of this scheme amendment could not be used as a basis of precedent. In our view, therefore, all of the reasons for refusal are refuted, such that the council should have comfort in at least allowing the scheme amendment to be initiated and track through the subsequent stages of the scheme amendment proposal. As I said before, council will have another opportunity down the line to vote on whether the scheme amendment should be approved, but we just would like council to at least initiate that process. My submission goes on to deal with land use compatibility. It's a vehicle sales land use. It doesn't introduce any land use compatibility issues at all. There's no sensitive land use impacts associated with it. And we're of course aware that there are many motor vehicle businesses throughout various industrial locations in the city of Canning, and we've listed those in our submission. These uses operate quite well in those areas and don't cause any land use compatibility issues at all. In conclusion, we believe that our scheme amendment has merit given the history of the site, the purchase of the site for its motor vehicle sales land use and intent, and the fact that the base general industry zone will stay intact. So we respectfully ask that the council set aside the officer's recommendation and initiate the scheme amendment consistent with the alternate recommendation, which is set out at paragraph 49 on page 51 of the agenda papers. Let the amendment track through the subsequent stages and you'll have another opportunity down the line to vote on whether it receives final approval. That's all for tonight, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this, and thank you for your consideration.
Thanks, Mr. Hitting. Thank you for coming down this evening. Director Bride, I was just going to ask, just in relation, there's a bit of interest, there's some interest in the item, and a number of councillors not here this evening. Can we have the submission distributed to councillors? I can't recall having seen it.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, we can certainly do that. I think it came through the governance area, but we can circulate that to all elected members.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Hitting. At item 5, there are no further deputations, Council. At item 5 this evening, items brought forward, there are none. Reports of committee meetings at item 6, there are none. At reports, the first report of which is from the Office of the CEO, Mr. Michael Littleton. It's OC 007 of 25. It's an adjourned item. CEO Performance and Salary Review Committee Terms of Reference. The recommendation is on page 7 of the agenda. It is also on screen now. Just for the record, part 1 of this item was previously adjourned by a procedural motion on the 17th of June 2025 at the OCM held on that evening to be presented to the August council meeting. Councillors had a further opportunity to provide feedback at the SIB on the strategic issues briefing held on the 5th of August. Councillors, are there any questions in relation to this item? Councillor Bone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Will the committee meetings be recorded and those recordings made available to councillors for their interest and consideration if they're not able to attend and observe the actual meetings themselves?
That's always been the case, I believe. We've been doing that for quite some time now, so that's a definite yes. Yep, absolutely. Any further questions? Councillor Kunza?
Thank you, Mayor Hall. Through you, with respect to the terms of reference, roles and functions, section 4A, it states that the function of the committee is to define and establish any additional performance criteria for the next financial year in consultation with the CEO for recommendation to council arising from the performance of the review process that must refer to the CEO's employment contract, corporate business plan and/or strategic community plan or council plan. And that's quite specific. Is that broadly, or does that mean that every individual KPI needs to align with the corporate business plan or strategic community plan?
Mr Yildiz?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think the word referred also opens up that it should refer to some sort of linkage to the strategic community plan or the corporate business plan. But again, the committee can make a recommendation to council about specific KPIs that may sit outside of that, subject to agreement with the CEO. So there is scope for further consideration beyond that.
Well, given that it's actually the KPIs need to be agreed to from both ends, I'm wondering why it's so prescriptive in whether it needs to relate to the corporate business plan and the strategic community plan. There's obviously council resolutions, there's budget items that sit within the 12-month period that might not directly align with those documents. I'm wondering why you've specifically included them, that they must refer to it.
Mr Yildiz?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. That was transferred directly from the council policy. So as part of the review of this, we want to incorporate all of those provisions that were in the council policy into the terms of reference and then make a recommendation to council to repeal that policy if they were all captured in there. But do take that point on notice.
I just had a couple of questions myself, and I'd like to just disclose I haven't had a chance to review the SIB that was held last week. I was away in Exmouth for the week, and I've been catching up and haven't had a chance to review it, but I will before the OCM. Just a couple of queries in relation to the terms of reference. Under roles and functions at 5, it says the function of the committee is also to conduct an interim review in the event the councillors are concerned or concerns about the performance of the CEO. Should that be the council facilitates or coordinates? I mean, or do you believe that the committee itself should be conducting an interim review?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And in answer to your question, again, that was one of the clauses that was in the council policy, so that was transcribed pretty much word for word. And the process would be that if council had any particular concerns about the CEO's performance, it'd go through the process of then instructing the committee to undertake that interim performance review. But again, it can take that on notice if there's any amendments particularly to that wording.
And ADO 4 talks about, and I'll refer to the terms under governance, so the terms of reference under governance talks about must complete the training within 12 months, whereas ADO 4 talks about 6 months. Is that a legislative change from 6 to 12? Is that why we've suggested 12 months, not 6?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The reason for that particular change was the scheduling of that particular training by WOLGA. The cycle doesn't necessarily allow, if there's a possibility that a member of the committee may not be able to physically attend a session for the training session that WOLGA provides. They do run it definitely within the 12-month period, but if it was within the 6 months of the appointment, there may not be a time to actually undertake that training during that 6-month period.
Oh, yeah, okay. I can't understand why that couldn't happen within 6 months, but I thought I'd ask the question. Just in relation to the terms of reference in item, I think it's maybe 1A still, talks about subject to the consent of the presiding member, members who attend a committee meeting, I'm talking about those that are not on the committee, can make an oral submission to the committee but can't vote on a motion. I'm wondering what's the reasoning for that? There's no controls around that, around how long can the oral submission be? Does it need to be a statement? Can they make assumptions? I mean, how far do we go? There's no controls around, as we do with public question time, about how long or what an oral submission should look like.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. That was been prescribed directly from the standing orders, which pretty much allows for the discretion of the presiding member to determine how long they can speak for or what that submission is. So again, that's left for the discretion of the presiding member, but that's transcribed directly from the standing orders.
Terrific. That's the only question I had. And anyone else have a question before we move on to the next item? Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Mr. Yildiz. Thank you for that. Thank you, CEO. We'll move on to the next item, which is OC 011 of 25, Proposed Amendment to Local Government Property and Public Place Local Laws 2021. The recommendation is on page 21 of the agenda and is also on screen. Councillors, any questions in relation to this item? Thank you, Councillor Kunza.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. Through you, I was just wondering how many times the city has imposed the $250 penalty since the local law came into effect in 2021.
Are we able to answer that? Mr. Yildiz, do you know?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My understanding is we haven't at all.
We haven't.
So, but we're still going through this whole process to increase it when we haven't even issued one infringement.
Is there a question? None. I just had a quick question. So part 2 talks about destroying or removing a tree or street tree which is on a public place. Is this a penalty per tree? Or is this a aggregated penalty for one act of damage? I did note that in background on paragraph 4, it talks about whilst the occurrence of tree vandalism is low in the city, I'd make the point that we've had quite a few reports of mass destruction of new plantings. I think Adenia Park a few years ago had 30-odd trees destroyed. We had almond trees and nut trees destroyed en masse in Canning Vale only a few years ago. So is that penalty a one-off penalty for one act or for one tree?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That would be the determination of the prosecuting officer, but each individual offence for each individual tree that damaged could be prosecuted as a separate offence and issued an infringement separately.
Thank you. Any further questions? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If a service provider was to remove or damage a tree without the city's knowledge, would the penalty also apply to them?
Mr. Yildiz, is it transferable, or who does the penalty apply to? The one that creates the act or the one that orders it and pays for it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That would be the determination of the prosecuting officer, but irrespective of who damaged the tree, the responsibility rely on the person who actually committed the act of the damage. So in that particular circumstance, the prosecuting officer would determine whether it was appropriate to prosecute that particular person that was responsible and go through the process of determining the evidence around the actual offence and whether that would hold up to be able to satisfy prosecution.
Can I just ask a follow-up question to Councillor Kunz's question? Has the city actually received a complaint with evidence? I'm having some problems with this. Am I back? Manager Governance, I think yours is on, that's why. Has the city actually received complaints from the public that have evidence and have been actually substantiated the damage of trees in public places? I'm a bit surprised that we haven't issued a single infringement over, I'm not sure how long time obviously, or ever. Are we choosing not to, let me see, to enforce the local law?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Mayor. My understanding is whilst there's been evidence of damage to particular trees, a prosecution has proven difficult to be able to prove that a particular person has conducted or acted in that particular way. Whilst the information that was provided to me by the particular teams was there's been some complaints that have been investigated, they haven't been prosecuted.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? No, thank you very much, councillors. We'll move on to the next item. The next item on the agenda this evening is item 7.2 under the directorate of Ms. Keely Hayward, the Acting Director of Corporate and Commercial. It's CC 016 of 25. It's the budget review as of the 31st of July 2025 to adopt projects carried forward from 2024 and 2025. The officer's recommendation appears on screen. This item next week, councillors, will require an absolute majority. The recommendation is on screen, as I said, also on page 28 of tonight's agenda. Any questions in relation to the budget review? Yes, Councillor Kunza.
Thank you. Through you. I just have a question. Paragraph 11 relates to the investment in city greening with the education and management plan for Polyphagus shuttleborough. I was just wondering, since the state government, as it was reported, put up the white flag a few months ago, has the city reviewed its investment in that space in terms of whether it's worth it for us to be investing the way council endorsed 12 to 18 months ago?
CEO, Director Bowe, yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The short answer, Councillor Kunzer, is no, but we wanted to carry the funds forward in relation to any future marketing or campaign work, which I do believe was the initial intent of council, and for us to develop and distribute educational material regarding it. Just as a quick aside, we have applied for some funding under the grant funding stream that was released as well in relation to the loss of trees that were infected. But we thought it was just wise, given that council had allocated the money, to carry the unspent money forward to enable that program to continue should council wish.
Thanks, Director. CEO's got a bit of ancillary information. CEO?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. The City of Canning is also part of a industry reference group that's been coordinated through WALGA to try and continue to increase our approach or to certainly work collaboratively with the sector. In fact, I have a meeting with Mia Carbon on Friday to talk about what we can do now, given it's now out of the federal regime and now into the state regime. So we are still working to see what we can do to at least mitigate the spread of polyphagus outside of the metropolitan area. We are still participating within the sector to see whether we can continue to make a difference.
Any further questions, Councillor? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I noted that the Fleetwood Park, Eastbourne Park lighting project and the Canning River Estate Shared Path Boardwalk feasibility study are not in the carry forward schedule. Is the city able to provide some more information on that?
Director Bowe?
Yes, the design work for the aforementioned park upgrades will continue, Deputy Mayor, in relation to the shared path and the continuation of the shared path around the Canning River. We're still engaging with the DBCA in relation to that. In fact, I met with staff very recently about some of the concepts that we'll need to put forward to DBCA to complete that path work. So we won't be undertaking any further studies until we have an indication from the DBCA whether they're likely to support that proposal.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you to Director Bowe. So that Fleetwood Park, Eastbourne Park lighting project, that doesn't need to be on the schedule?
Director Bowe?
The reality is that we didn't have the money on last year's budget for that once we reviewed the financials, Deputy Mayor. So whilst we'll still have some operating money available to progress the design, it's likely that we'll seek a budget amendment to progress that project mid-year.
Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And the other one was in the fleet section of the carry forward schedule. It's 34,550 for a mobile CCTV. Just inquiring if that is for a CCTV unit that is yet to be delivered by the supplier. Is that correct?
Director Fisher.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I might just take that on notice and get back to you. Thank you.
We'll get back to you on that one, Deputy Mayor. Thank you. In the absence of any further questions, we might move on to the next item. Thank you, Council. It is the Director of Mr Warren Bowe, the Director of Infrastructure and Environment. In fact, I'll back up one with Mr 7.3, which is the Directorate of Mr Graham Bride, the Director of Planning and Development. It's PD 006 of 25. The subject report title is Initiation of Scheme Amendment number 19 to Local Planning Scheme number 42, amending Schedule B additional uses to include additional use A34 for motor vehicle, boat or caravan, 145 Welshpool Road in Welshpool. The recommendation is on page 42 of the agenda, and the recommendation is also, or most of it, is also on screen. Any questions in relation to that item? Yes, Councillor Page.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. My question, if Council resolves not to proceed with the scheme amendment number 19 to local planning scheme number 42, what is the timeframe the applicant will have to cease motor vehicle, boat or caravan sales operations at the site?
Director Bride.
Through Mr Mayor, we would usually work with the applicant and try to find a reasonable amount of time. This particular landowner obviously has a number of other assets in the area, so there might be an ability to continue to use the site for storage of vehicles rather than the selling and hiring. So we'll be exploring all of those things with the applicant if council decides not to initiate the amendment.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Page. Councillor Kunza.
Through you to Director Bride, Mr Mayor. Just with respect to, 32B, and it's from the, cites the DPLH officer comment, and the city's commentary is fairly similar with respect to allowing commercial sales in a general industry zone may set an undesirable precedent leading to further land use conflicts and deviations from long-term planning strategies. I just want to ask whether through the design of the actual the zoning area, like in Willetton with the light industrial area, they've got High Road, which has a commercial precinct facing High Road with the light industrial back of it. Is it not common in industrial areas to have commercial along major thoroughfares, carriageways, like Welshpool Road? Is it not common you go down Leach Highway and you have the car sales there and then the industry behind it? Is it not common for that to actually happen? I was just surprised with respect to the commentary about commercial sales in a general industry zone being land use conflicts. It's just when I drive around as a layperson, it seems to be common practice. Obviously not from a planning perspective. I just wondered why it was seen so negatively with respect to allowing it to proceed when it's happened for 60 years.
Director Bride.
Through Mr Mayor. You're right. Obviously along corridors, high traffic volume roads that run through industrial precincts, historically in relation to motor vehicle sales and other similar uses, they have located obviously where those high traffic corridors are. So you do find historically that that's where they have located. Council, as part of that 2020 scheme review, in relation to that general industrial zone, given it's a finite resource, it's centrally located, it's one of a number of strategic industrial precincts, and given over the preceding scheme, this particular land use has, I guess, become more prolific. Council at that time believed that it was probably about time, given the non-conforming use rights would allow those uses to continue. There were other opportunities along Albany Highway that land use probably is starting to, over time, appreciate they don't generally locate inner, they don't locate off some of those high roads, so you are looking at the more high volume roads as to where they locate. But when you look at the areas involved, that's quite a large proportion of the industrial precincts, some of those high traffic volume carrying roads. So you're pretty much seeing Welshpool Road along that frontage transitioning out of more traditional industrial uses into more commercialised uses. And I guess that was the rationale as to why this particular land use maybe doesn't fit the objectives of the industrial zone.
Thank you. You have a follow-up question? Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Is the City concerned that if the amendment was approved by Council, that Council would be able to step with the approach of the WAPC objectives for industrial zones?
Director Bright, are you able to answer that question?
Through Mr Mayor, it's probably, obviously the department looks at the Perth metropolitan area more strategically. We're obviously concentrating on the City of Canning, they're looking at the whole Perth metro area, and they are concerned about the encroachment of commercial uses. I'm not too concerned about being out of step. I guess the concern from the officers is, from a precedent perspective, if Council was to adopt or support this amendment, I can't see that there's anything specific to this site that doesn't apply to other industrial sites in the area. So our concern is probably more about the precedent. If another application comes forward seeking additional use, I'm not sure what rationale we could use to not progress that application.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Next question's a hypothetical of sorts, but would this application been considered differently if it was submitted during the state of emergency?
Director Bride.
Yeah, if it was lodged, the non-conforming use right actually ran through that emergency period. So if they were to have continued that use, didn't have to be Cosmac trailers, but if it was, car sales yard during that period, they would have automatically been able to keep going. So there wouldn't have been an application required. It's just after a certain period, those non-conforming use rights extinguish. I guess that's the position that we're in at the moment.
Thank you. Thanks, Director Bride. Any further questions on that item, Council? Thank you. That being the case, we'll move on to the next item, which is the Directorate of Mr Warren Bowe, the Director of Infrastructure and Environment. It's IE 016 of 25, the title being Request for Tender RFT 22/2025 Nicholson Road and Metcalfe Road intersection upgrade. The officer's recommendation, parts 1 and 2, appear on page 62 of the agenda and are currently on screen. Any questions in relation to the item? Deputy Mayor, I was looking at you, wasn't I?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Understandably, I've got a few questions, if I may.
Yeah, go on.
Could the City please provide Council with the feedback it received as part of the community consultation phase?
Director, are you able to provide us with that feedback, or you are? Absolutely. Okay, we'll distribute that.
Excellent. Would the City also be able to provide via email or in the OCM papers a breakdown of that, how that $3 million of the the state government election commitment has been spent thus far? So how much money? Doesn't need to be in detail, but how much money has been spent, say, on procurement and design, and will there be any funds left over?
In broad terms, are you able to provide that, Director? Yes. Director Bowe saying affirmative.
Excellent. Would it be accurate to say that the signalised intersection will result in more traffic using Montrose Street to avoid the lights?
Director Bride, is there evidence that that will occur? Director Bowe, sorry. Can hardly tell you apart, sorry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I can ask the staff to revisit some of the traffic modelling that was considered during the design phase, Deputy Mayor. But as with all major infrastructure projects or even minor infrastructure projects that impact traffic movement, we'll continue to monitor the outcome of the installation and make decisions based on any diversion of traffic as a result.
Thanks, Director. Anything further, Deputy
Yes,
Mayor?
please, Mr Mayor.
Yep, go ahead.
So I guess in previous interactions with the City, that has been put forward, and my concern would then be if we have a plan once the signals have been installed, that there is something that we're going to do to offset the increased rat running through Montrose Street. But we can talk about that offline if you wish. But as far as the tender is concerned, I did find the contract sum for the successful applicant. Would it please be possible to provide Council of the other tenderers' proposed contract sums?
Director Bowe, is that something you're able to provide?
I don't see any reason why not, Mr Mayor. So.
Thank you. Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Any further questions? Yes, Councillor Shen-Second.
Thank you, Mayor Hull. Once the tender process is complete, when do we anticipate the construction of the traffic signals to commence?
Director Bowe?
I'll take that question on notice, Mr Mayor, but in general, as soon as possible, Councillor Second, we are racing to the line to finish this project this year.
I think there's also some state government involvement, and their people are keen to see it progress. So I think it'll progress as quickly as we can make it happen, from what I understand. Yes, Councillor Second.
Just a follow-up question. So there is a expiry date for the funding. It has to be expended by this financial year. Is that right?
Director Bowe.
Not as such, Councillor Second, but we are. Our objective is to complete the project as soon as possible. The funding has been available, as you'd be aware. We've had some design issues with and approvals relating to the different options that have been considered, but we're really keen to get this project completed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions? Thank you. We'll move on to IE 017 of 25. That's request for tender, RFT 18/2025, turf renovations and maintenance services. The officer's recommendation, also parts 1 and 2, on screen now, and appears on page 70 of tonight's agenda. Any questions in relation to this tender item? Yes, councillor Secon.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. Paragraph 19 mentioned that due to cost escalations, priority will be given to Premier Sports Park, where high-level cricket is played. How many parks fall within that priority list, and can we have a list of parks that fall in that category?
Director Bowe?
Yes, definitely, Mr Mayor. There's two. Councillor Second, it's Burrendar Reserve and Wyong Reserve.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Deputy Mayor Mark Bain.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just following on from Councillor Secon's question, with the recent ponding in mind, will Ferndale Reserve and Shelley Reserve continue to receive annual full turf renovations under the reviewed service delivery model?
Director Bowe.
We're happy to consider that, Mr Mayor. I don't believe that the seasonal turf renovations was a major contributing factor to the inundation that we've experienced across a number of reserves, and which has actually, quite frankly, been across the entire metro area. By comparison, ours have held up pretty well, but I'll speak with our service leads in sports turf and their sports turf management expertise and provide a response, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Secon.
Just a follow-up question. Has the city used the services by Program Property Services before, or is this the first time?
Director Bowe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. No, we haven't used this company for this particular service previously. As you would see, there's been a couple of market providers or service providers in the market that are no longer in the market. As a result, we haven't used this company before, but we've undertaken a thorough review of their capability, including having a review of their references as part of the tender assessment process, so we're confident that they can deliver the services as required.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Secon. Any further questions, Council? Thank you. We'll move to the next item then. It's IE 018 of 25. Councillor, this was, you will note, a late item. It's the title of the report is Major Land Transaction Business Plan for portion of lots 85, 9001, 9002, Bannister Road in Canning Vale. The four parts appears on page 2 of the late agenda and is currently on screen. Any questions in relation to this late item? Thank you. We shall move on then to the next item, which is 7.5, Mr Gary Fisher, the Director of Customer and Community, noting that Councillor Secon has already declared an impartiality interest in the item. It's CO 006 of 25, the title of the report being Willetton Reserve Sports Lighting Upgrade, Club Night Lights Program Forward Planning Application, the recommendation on screen and being on page 76 of tonight's agenda. Any questions in relation to that item? Yes, Councillor Kunza.
Through you, Mayor Hall. I was just wondering, is the primary focus of the investment into providing improvements for soccer?
Director Bowe, is that, Director Fisher, is that the imperative here to provide?
Through you, Mr Mayor. So obviously we got numerous clubs there, obviously soccer, softball, cricket and baseball as well. So obviously the primary purpose is to increase usage of that ground. Obviously there's a need from the soccer club and obviously they've been kind of advocating quite strongly for this project over numerous years.
I'm just wondering, following up from that, the report is written as though it's the soccer, baseball, cricket and softball. I'm just wondering, with respect to the lux levels, my understanding is that softball and baseball need 300 lux. Cricket needs 100 minimum for training. And just in terms of the level investment compared to what we did in Parkwood recently, I just don't imagine there's going to be that many light poles to get the coverage for all those sports. I'm just cognizant of, I asked the questions after we built Hossack. How is it doing just a little bit of investment? Is it going to actually be able to play baseball and softball there and cricket and actually meet the minimum standards?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I would imagine our community infrastructure strategy would cover that, but I may just pass to Michael Gassardi to answer that question.
Mr Gassardi.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. We are catering for, in accordance with the CIS provisions, for 100 lux for big ball sports, so that would be soccer. You are correct. Small ball sports have a higher lux, so we will only consider provision for higher lux sports if there's a co-contribution from the relevant parties. So if baseball and cricket can train at 100 lux, but for competition, yes, they would require a higher lux. So that would require further investment.
Can I ask a quick question just following on that? So the upgrade from 50 lux to 100 lux, do we know the cost comparative to going from 50 to a much higher lux? Will the infrastructure that's currently in place carry an upgrade of that size, and is the cost completely prohibitive? Director Bowe, I know you're a full bottle.
No,
Well, you are.
I can take that on notice, Mr Mayor, and provide a response to all the elected members.
Yes, Councillor Kunza.
So with our CIS policy, it says that cricket you can train at 100, but training for softball and baseball you need at least 300 lux. Given the predominant sports played at this, I mean, as far as I know, baseball is a summer sport, so I doubt they use too much of these lights anyway. But I just, with respect, is that still, yeah, it's not just whether you upgrade the lux, it's also the placement of the poles. So I'm just wondering, the amount of investment relative to what sports are being played and the lux levels just seems to be something in the future that we question why we did that. I'm just wondering, is it predominantly about soccer and are we properly being cognizant of the other sports being played there?
Director Fisher, CEO, do you want to make a comment on that?
I don't know whether I want to buy in, but I think your point is right. I think this is largely to accommodate large ball sports. I mean, it is general practice that local governments are increasing their lighting provisions on ovals to 100 lux switchable, 50 switchable to 100. I think there would need to be a substantial business case that would prompt us going to 300 lux for any of those small ball courts, small ball sports. I think there would need to be a fairly substantial need and provision if that was our desire. I don't know too many local governments that are actually making that decision to provide that sort of facility. Most of these sports are being played during the day, not at night, obviously because the provision of lighting isn't there.
Thanks, CEO. My question's related. Well, the reason for the questions was it said that all 4 clubs are supportive of the investment, and then our CIS speaks about the minimum investment needed, and so they didn't really line up for me, but I'll take what's been received so far. Thank you.
Thank you. And there'll be a bit more information coming during the week from the questions answered asked tonight. So thank you, Councillor Kunza. Any further questions in relation to the item on Willetton Reserve sports lighting upgrade? None. Thank you, councillors. We shall move on then to, we've just about finished, I think. At item 8, notices a motion for consideration at the next ordinary council meeting. There are none. Urgent business tonight at item 9, there is none. Confidential matters at item 10, similarly, there are none. And at item 11, being closure, there being no further business, I now declare the agenda briefing closed, the time being 6:54 p.m. And then thank everyone for their attendance. Thank you, everyone.